Marcus Chen had always been ordinary. At 32, he worked as a maintenance engineer at the Luna mining station, fixing broken equipment and keeping the lights on for the 300 souls who called the moon home. His days blended together in a routine of repairs, reports, and the occasional drink at Murphy's bar with the other engineers. Nothing about his life suggested he would become part of something extraordinary. The night everything changed started like any other. Marcus was finishing his shift when the emergency sirens began wailing throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors as he made his way to the main observation deck, where a crowd had gathered. Through the massive viewing windows, he could see something that made his heart race. A ship hung in space above the lunar surface, unlike anything in human design. It was sleek and organic-looking, its hull shimmering with colors that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. The vessel was enormous, easily the size of 3 Earth destroyers, but it moved with a grace that defied its mass. First contact, someone whispered behind him, and Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Within hours, the station buzzed with activity. The ship had sent a message in perfect English, requesting permission to dock and meet with station representatives. The alien delegation, they said, consisted of a single envoy who wished to discuss peaceful relations between their peoples. Commander Sarah Walsh, the station's military liaison, had taken charge of the situation. Marcus watched from the maintenance bay as security teams prepared the main docking bay. He had no business being involved in such momentous events, but curiosity got the better of him. He made his way to the upper maintenance tunnels that overlooked the docking bay, telling himself he just wanted to witness history. The alien ship's shuttle was a work of art. It landed without a sound, its surface rippling like water before solidifying into a more familiar metallic appearance. Marcus pressed his face against the reinforced glass of the maintenance tunnel, his breath fogging the surface as he watched the airlock cycle open. The being that emerged took his breath away. She was clearly female, though not human. Tall and graceful, she stood nearly 7 feet in height, with skin that held a subtle luminescence, like moonlight on water. Her features were angular but beautiful, with large eyes that seemed to hold depths of intelligence and experience. Her hair, if it could be called that, appeared to be made of flowing silver threads that moved independently, creating a hypnotic pattern around her shoulders. But what struck Marcus most was her bearing. She moved with the confidence of a warrior, yet there was something gentle in the way she carried herself. She wore what appeared to be ceremonial armor, form-fitting and decorated with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as she moved. Commander Walsh stepped forward to greet her, flanked by the station's senior staff. The alien woman raised her hand in what was clearly a gesture of peace, and, when she spoke, her voice carried clearly through the bay's communication system. "I am Zaratiel of the Valerian hegemony," she said, her accent exotic but her English flawless. "I come as champion of my people, seeking understanding between our species." The formal greetings continued, but Marcus found himself transfixed by her presence. There was something about her that seemed to call to him, though he couldn't explain what it was. He watched as she was escorted to the station's main conference room for the diplomatic talks that would shape humanity's future. For 3 days, the negotiations continued. Marcus went about his duties, but his mind was constantly on the alien champion. He found excuses to work in areas where he might catch glimpses of her as she moved through the station with her security escort. Each time he saw her, he felt that same strange pull, as if some invisible thread connected them. On the 3rd night, everything changed. Marcus was working late in the lower maintenance sections, replacing faulty atmospheric processors, when he heard footsteps echoing through the corridor. He looked up from his work to see Zaratiel approaching, alone. She had removed her ceremonial armor and wore a simple, flowing garment that seemed to be made of the same shifting material as her hair. "You have been watching me," she said, her voice soft but direct. It wasn't an accusation, merely a statement of fact. Marcus felt his face burn with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Do not apologize," she interrupted, moving closer. "I have been watching you as well." He stared at her, confused. "Me? Why would you?" "There is something about you," she said, tilting her head as she studied his face. "Something that resonates. In my culture, we call it the soul thread. It is rare, even among our own people." Marcus set down his tools, wiping his hands on his coveralls. "I don't understand." Zaratiel smiled, and the expression transformed her alien features into something breathtakingly beautiful. Perhaps understanding is not necessary. Perhaps feeling is enough. She reached out and touched his face with her long, elegant fingers. Her skin was warm and seemed to tingle with some kind of energy. Marcus felt his heart racing as she looked into his eyes. "I leave tomorrow," she said softly. "The negotiations are complete. Our peoples will work together, but I must return to my world." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. The thought of never seeing her again filled him with an unexpected pain. "Will you come back?" "Perhaps," she said, but there was sadness in her eyes that suggested otherwise. "But tonight, we have this moment." What happened next seemed like a dream. Zaratiel led him to her temporary quarters, a converted storage bay that had been hastily furnished for her stay. The walls had been lined with soft fabrics and strange, glowing plants that she had brought from her ship. The air smelled of exotic flowers and something else, something that reminded Marcus of rain on summer Earth. They talked through the night, sharing stories of their worlds and their lives. Zaratiel told him of Valoris Prime, her home world, where great crystalline cities rose from purple seas beneath twin suns. She spoke of her people, the Valorians, who had mastered technologies that seemed like magic to human understanding. She was a champion, she explained, one of the elite warriors chosen to represent her people in all important matters. In return, Marcus told her about Earth, about the blue skies and green forests that he missed so desperately on the sterile moon base. He spoke of his simple life, his work, his dreams of someday seeing the stars. She listened with an intensity that made him feel as if his words were the most important things in the universe. As the hours passed, something deeper grew between them. The physical attraction was undeniable, but there was more than that. Marcus felt as if he had found something he hadn't even known he was looking for. When they finally came together, it was with a tenderness and passion that transcended the differences between their species. The connection they shared was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. It was as if their very souls touched, creating something new and beautiful. Zaratiel's skin glowed brighter as their passion grew, and Marcus felt energy flowing between them, bonding them in ways he couldn't comprehend. When dawn came to the lunar station, marked only by the shift change alerts, they lay together in the soft light of her alien plants. Zaratiel traced patterns on Marcus's chest with her fingers, her silver hair flowing around them like liquid starlight. "This cannot last," she whispered, but there were tears in her large eyes. "I know," Marcus replied, though the words tore at his heart. "But it was real." "More real than you know," she said, sitting up and looking at him with an expression he couldn't read. "Marcus, there is something you must understand about my people. When we form true connections, when the soul thread binds us to another, it creates something lasting." Before he could ask what she meant, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Her ship was preparing to depart, and her presence was required for the final ceremonies. They dressed in silence, the weight of goodbye hanging heavy between them. At the door to her quarters, Zaratiel turned to him one last time. "Remember me," she said, pressing something into his hand. It was a small crystal that seemed to pulse with inner light. "And know that part of you travels with me always." She kissed him then, a kiss that tasted of starlight and promises. When she pulled away, Marcus saw something in her eyes that looked like hope mixed with sorrow. "Will I ever see you again?" he asked. "Perhaps sooner than you think," she said cryptically. Then, she was gone, swept away by the tide of diplomatic protocol and the demands of two civilizations learning to coexist. Marcus stood in the corridor long after her footsteps had faded, clutching the crystal she had given him. Around him, the station bustled with activity as the historic first contact mission came to an end. But, for him, something much more personal had ended as well. Or so he thought. As he made his way back to his quarters, Marcus had no way of knowing that his life had been forever changed by that one night. He couldn't know that the woman he had fallen in love with carried within her a secret that would reshape both their destinies. He couldn't know that the soul thread she had spoken of was more than just a romantic notion. The crystal in his hand pulsed gently, as if in rhythm with his heartbeat. Whatever Zaratiel had meant by her parting words, Marcus would have to wait to find out. For now, all he had were memories of the most extraordinary night of his life and the growing certainty that ordinary Marcus Chin was ordinary no longer. In the depths of space, the Valerian ship accelerated toward the jump point that would carry it back to their home system. In her private chambers, Zaratiel placed her hand over her abdomen and smiled through her tears. The soul thread had done more than connect their hearts. It had created something that would bridge two worlds and change the course of galactic history. She had not lied when she said they would meet again sooner than he thought. She simply hadn't told him that when they did, they would not be alone. The return. 2 years had passed since that night, and Marcus had tried to convince himself it was just a beautiful dream. The crystal Zaratiel had given him remained his most precious possession, sitting on his nightstand where its gentle glow was the last thing he saw before sleep and the first thing he greeted each morning. Sometimes, when he held it, he could swear he felt her presence somewhere far away among the stars. Life on Luna Mining Station had returned to normal after the historic first contact. Trade agreements had been established with the Valerian hegemony, and occasionally their ships would arrive with exotic materials and technologies that advanced human science by decades. But Zaratiel never returned with them, and Marcus learned not to hope every time a Valerian vessel appeared on the station's sensors. Commander Walsh had been promoted and transferred to Earth, replaced by Commander Rodriguez, who ran a tighter ship but was fair to his people. Marcus had been promoted to senior maintenance engineer, a position that came with better quarters and a modest increase in pay. His life was comfortable, but something fundamental had changed in him since that night. He felt like a man waiting for something without knowing what he was waiting for. The morning that changed everything started with a priority alert from the communications array. Marcus was reviewing maintenance schedules when his comm unit crackled to life. All senior staff to the command center immediately, Rodriguez's voice commanded. This is not a drill. Marcus frowned. Senior staff meetings usually didn't include maintenance personnel unless there was a major system failure. But something in the commander's tone made him drop what he was doing and head for the command center. The main screen was active when he arrived, showing a familiar sight that made his heart skip a beat. A Valerian ship hung in space near the station, but this one was different. Smaller than the massive vessel that had brought Zaratiel 2 years ago, it had the sleek lines of a diplomatic courier. The ship is requesting permission to dock, Lieutenant Hayes reported from the communications station. They're asking specifically for Marcus Chen. Every eye in the room turned to Marcus, and he felt his face burn with embarrassment and confusion. Commander Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. Chen? Any idea why they'd want to see a maintenance engineer? Marcus shook his head, though his hand unconsciously moved to his pocket where he always carried Zaratiel's crystal. No sir, I have no idea. That was a lie, but not one he was prepared to explain to his commanding officer. Rodriguez studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. Well, first contact protocols still apply. Security team to docking bay 2. Chen, you're with me. The walk to the docking bay felt like the longest of Marcus's life. His mind raced with possibilities. Was Zaratiel aboard that ship? Had something happened to her? Why would they ask for him specifically? The Valerian shuttle was smaller and more elegant than the one he remembered, its hull seeming to shift between silver and deep blue as the lights played across its surface. When the airlock cycled open, Marcus held his breath. The figure that emerged was not Zaratiel. It was a Valerian male, tall and imposing, wearing the formal robes of what Marcus recognized as a diplomatic envoy. His features were sharp and stern, and when his eyes found Marcus in the small crowd, there was something calculating in his gaze. I am Corendal of the Diplomatic Corps, he said in accented but precise English. I must speak with the human called Marcus Chen on a matter of great importance. Commander Rodriguez stepped forward. I'm Commander Rodriguez, in charge of this station. If you have business with one of my people, you can discuss it with me first. Corendal's expression didn't change. With respect, Commander, this is a personal matter that affects the relationship between our peoples. I must speak with Marcus Chen privately. The tension in the docking bay was thick enough to cut. Marcus could see Rodriguez weighing his options, clearly uncomfortable with the unusual request but unwilling to create a diplomatic incident. Very well, Rodriguez said finally. Conference room 3. Security will remain posted outside. Minutes later, Marcus found himself sitting across a metal table from an alien diplomat, his hands folded in his lap to hide their trembling. Corendell studied him for a long moment before speaking. 2 standard years ago, Champion Zaratiel spent time on this station during the initial contact negotiations, he began. You interacted with her during this period. It wasn't a question, so Marcus simply nodded. What I am about to tell you must remain confidential until we determine the best course of action, Corendell continued. Zaratiel has given birth to a child. A child that, according to our genetic analysis, carries both Valerian and human DNA. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. The room seemed to spin around him, and he gripped the edge of the table to steady himself. That's impossible, he whispered. We're different species. We can't. Under normal circumstances, you would be correct, Corendell interrupted. However, Zaratiel is not ordinary, even among our people. She carries genetic markers that make her compatible with other sentient species. It is part of what makes her a champion. And you, Marcus Chen, apparently carry similar markers from your human heritage. Marcus stared at the alien diplomat, his mind struggling to process what he was being told. You're saying I have a child? We are saying you have a child who may represent the future of both our species, Corendell corrected. The infant displays characteristics of both races, but early analysis suggests he may have inherited abilities that exceed both. This has created considerable debate within our government. Marcus felt his heart clench. I have a son? For the first time, Corendell's stern expression softened slightly. Yes. Zaratiel has named him Kai Marcus, honoring both cultures. She has requested that you be informed of his existence and given the opportunity to be part of his life. The emotions flooding through Marcus were overwhelming. Joy, terror, confusion, love for a child he had never met. Where is he? Where are they? That is complicated, Corendell said, his formal tone returning. There are factions within our government who view the child as either a valuable asset or a potential threat. Some believe he should be raised entirely within Valerian culture, trained as a weapon or a symbol of our superiority. Others fear what his mixed heritage might mean for the purity of our bloodlines. Marcus felt anger flare in his chest. He's not a weapon or a threat. He's a child. My child. And, Zaratiel's, Corendell agreed. Which is why she has made a difficult decision. She is bringing him here, to you. Marcus's heart stopped. Here? To the station? She believes the child will be safer in human space, at least temporarily. She also believes you have the right to know your son and help shape his future. Corendell leaned forward. But, you must understand, Marcus Chen, this decision comes with enormous consequences. By bringing the child to human territory, Zaratiel is defying direct orders from the Hegemony Council. She is, in effect, committing treason. The weight of that statement settled on Marcus like a physical burden. What happens to her? If she is caught, she faces exile at best, execution at worst, Corendell said bluntly. She is sacrificing everything for this child. For you. Marcus stood up abruptly, pacing to the small window that looked out into space. A million questions swirled through his mind, but one rose above all the others. Why are you telling me this? Why are you helping her? Corendell was quiet for a long moment. Because I believe she is right. I have studied human history, your culture, your capacity for love and sacrifice. I believe this child could be the bridge our species need to truly understand each other. But, more than that, I have seen what losing this child would do to Zaratiel. She is more than a champion to our people. She is hope incarnate. And hope should not be destroyed by fear. Marcus turned back to face the diplomat. When will they arrive? Soon. Perhaps within hours. But, there are things you must know about the child, about what he might become. Corendell activated a small holographic projector, and an image appeared above the table. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. The child in the projection was perhaps 18 months old, sitting on a blanket in what looked like a garden. He was clearly a blend of both species, with Marcus's dark hair and general facial structure but with the subtle luminescence of Valerian skin. His eyes were large and dark, holding an intelligence that seemed far beyond his age. But what struck Marcus most was how much the child looked like him. The shape of his nose, the set of his jaw, the way he tilted his head, they were all familiar. This was undeniably his son. The resemblance is quite remarkable, Corendal observed. But the child's abilities are what truly set him apart. He began walking at 8 months, speaking in both languages at 10 months. His learning capacity appears to be exponential. Our scientists believe he may develop abilities that neither species possesses individually. Marcus couldn't take his eyes off the image. His son was beautiful, perfect, and completely alien to everything he had known about his own life. What kind of abilities? We are not certain yet. Enhanced intelligence, certainly. Possibly telepathic capabilities, given that both species carry latent genes for such abilities. There are indications he might be able to interface directly with technology, both human and Valerian. Corendal paused. There are also signs he may be able to manipulate matter at the molecular level. The implications of that statement hit Marcus like a wave. You're talking about someone who could reshape reality itself. Perhaps. Or perhaps he will simply be a bridge between two peoples who need to learn to coexist. Corendal deactivated the projector. But you can see why some in our government view him as a threat. Such power in the hands of someone who owes allegiance to neither side completely could be dangerous. Marcus sat back down, his head spinning. Everything about his life was about to change, and he wasn't sure he was ready for it. But one thing was certain, he would not abandon his son or the woman who had risked everything to give him this chance. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "For now, simply prepare. Zaratiel will arrive with the child soon. We have prepared false identification documents that will allow them to remain in human space legally, but they will need protection. There are those among my people who will not accept the Hegemony Council's decision to let this proceed." "You mean they'll come after them?" "It is possible. Zaratiel is a formidable warrior, but she cannot fight an entire civilization while protecting a child." Corendal stood. "That is where you come in, Marcus-chan. This child needs a father, but he also needs someone who understands both worlds he comes from." As if summoned by their conversation, Marcus's calm unit chirped with an incoming message. Lieutenant Hayes's voice crackled through the speaker. "Commander Rodriguez to Conference Room 3. We have another Valerian ship requesting permission to dock." Marcus and Corendal looked at each other, and Marcus saw something that might have been fear in the alien diplomat's eyes. "She is here," Corendal said quietly. "Your life as you knew it is over, Marcus-chan. Are you ready for what comes next?" Marcus thought of the crystal on his nightstand, the dreams that had haunted him for 2 years, and the image of a child who shared his features and his blood. He thought of Zaratiel, risking everything to give their son a chance at a life free from the politics and fear that surrounded his birth. "No," he said honestly. "But I'm ready anyway." Outside the conference room, alarms began to sound as the station prepared for another historic moment. But this time, Marcus wouldn't be watching from the sidelines. This time, he was about to meet his son. #The new beginning. The docking bay had been cleared of all non-essential personnel, leaving only Marcus, Commander Rodriguez, 2 security guards, and Corendal waiting as the second Valerian ship completed its docking procedure. Marcus's hands trembled as he watched the airlock cycle through its sequence. Somewhere beyond the door was his son, a child he had never known existed until an hour ago. The airlock hissed open, and Zaratiel stepped through. She was as beautiful as Marcus remembered, though now there was something different about her. A maternal strength radiated from her posture, and her large eyes held a fierce protectiveness that hadn't been there before. She wore simple traveling clothes instead of her ceremonial armor, but she moved with the same graceful confidence that had captivated him 2 years earlier. In her arms, she carried a child. Marcus's breath caught in his throat as he saw his son for the first time. Marcus was awake and alert, his dark eyes taking in everything around him with an intelligence that seemed far beyond his 18 months. When those eyes found Marcus, the child tilted his head in a gesture so familiar it made Marcus's heart ache. "Marcus," Zaratiel said softly, her voice carrying across the docking bay. The single word held volumes: greeting, apology, love, and desperate hope all woven together. "Zara," he replied, stepping forward despite the security protocols. Commander Rodriguez started to object, but Corendal placed a restraining hand on his arm. "Let them have this moment," the diplomat said quietly. Zaratiel moved toward Marcus, and, when they were close enough to touch, she held out their son. "This is Kai Marcus," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Your son." Marcus reached out with shaking hands to take the child. The moment Kai Marcus settled into his arms, something fundamental shifted in Marcus's universe. The boy was solid and warm, smelling faintly of the exotic flowers he remembered from Zaratiel's quarters. But, more than that, there was an immediate sense of connection, as if invisible threads bound them together. Kai Marcus looked up at him with those impossibly intelligent eyes and smiled. When he spoke, his voice was clear and precise despite his age. "Papa," he said in English, then repeated it in what Marcus assumed was Valerian. "I've been waiting to meet you." Marcus nearly dropped the child in shock. The vocabulary and sentence structure were far beyond what any human child could manage at that age. When he looked at Zaratiel for explanation, she smiled sadly. "He has been asking about you since he learned to speak," she said. "I have told him stories about his father among the stars." "He talks like this normally?" Marcus asked, still struggling to process everything. "His development is accelerated beyond both our species' norms," Zaratiel confirmed. "Our scientists believe he processes information and forms connections at a rate neither humans nor Valorians can match individually." Commander Rodriguez cleared his throat. "I hate to interrupt this reunion, but we have immediate security concerns. Our sensors are detecting multiple ship signatures at the edge of our system." Military configurations. Corendal's expression darkened. "The hegemony has sent a retrieval force. They have decided the child is too valuable to remain in human space." Marcus instinctively tightened his hold on Kai Marcus. "They can't just take him. He's my son too." "To them, he is a strategic asset," Zaratiel said bitterly. "The Council has ordered his return for proper education and training. They see only his potential as a weapon." "How long do we have?" Rodriguez asked, already moving toward the communication panel. "Perhaps 6 hours before they reach this system," Corendal estimated. "The Force Commander is Torvak, a hardline traditionalist who views human-Valorian relations as a necessary evil at best. He will not hesitate to use force if diplomacy fails." Marcus looked down at his son, who seemed to understand the gravity of the situation despite his age. Those dark eyes held a wisdom that was both comforting and deeply unsettling. "What are our options?" Marcus asked. "Limited," Zaratiel replied. "We could try to reach Earth space, where the hegemony would be less willing to take aggressive action. But their ships are faster than anything humanity possesses." "There might be another way," Kai Marcus said quietly, his small voice cutting through the adult conversation. Everyone turned to stare at the child, who was looking at the docking bay's main computer terminal with intense concentration. "What do you mean, little one?" Zaratiel asked gently. "The station's computers," Kai Marcus said, pointing toward the terminal. "I can feel them. They're like friends wanting to talk. Maybe they can help us hide." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "He can interface with the computers?" "It appears so," Corendal said, studying the child with scientific fascination. "This is far beyond what we had theorized possible." Commander Rodriguez looked skeptical. "You're saying an 18-month-old can hack into our systems?" "Not hack," Kai Marcus corrected seriously. "Talk. They want to help, but they need someone to show them how." Before anyone could object, the child reached toward the terminal. When his small hand touched the interface panel, the entire docking bay hummed with energy. Lights flickered and data streams began flowing across every screen in the area. Marcus watched in amazement as his son seemed to commune with the station's entire computer network. The child's eyes took on a faint luminescence, similar to his mother's but somehow different. More focused. More purposeful. Incredible, Corendell breathed. He's not just accessing the systems. He's optimizing them, improving their efficiency. Can you help us hide from the hegemony ships? Zaratiel asked her son gently. Kaimarcus nodded slowly, his hand still connected to the terminal. The station has stealth capabilities that were never activated. The humans built them but forgot how to use them. I can fix that. That's impossible, Rodriguez protested. Luna Station doesn't have stealth technology. Check the original construction blueprints, Kaimarcus said without taking his attention from the computer interface. Level 7, Section 12. The adaptive hull plating was designed for more than just radiation protection. Rodriguez's comm unit buzzed with an incoming message from the engineering department. Lieutenant Commander Park's excited voice crackled through the speaker. Sir, we're getting massive system optimizations across the board. And, sir, we found something in the construction archives. There are stealth systems built into the station that were never activated. Someone's bringing them online now. Marcus stared at his son in wonder and growing concern. The child was accomplishing things that should have been impossible, but at what cost? The luminescence around Kaimarcus's eyes was growing brighter, and Marcus could feel heat radiating from his small body. Is he safe doing this? Marcus asked Zaratiel. I don't know, she admitted, her own concern evident. This level of interface is beyond anything we've observed before. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The main screen activated, showing 6 sleek Valerian warships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. They're here, Corendell announced grimly. Kaimarcus lifted his head from the terminal, his eyes slowly returning to their normal appearance. The station is hidden now, he said matter-of-factly. They won't be able to find us with their sensors. But, Papa, I'm tired. The child slumped against Marcus's chest, and, for a moment he looked like the 18-month-old he was supposed to be. Marcus held him tighter, marveling at what his son had accomplished while worrying about the implications. How long will the stealth hold? Rodriguez asked. As long as the station maintains current power levels, Kaimarcus mumbled against his father's shoulder. I showed the computers how to adapt the energy signatures to match background radiation. The main screen shifted to show the approaching Valerian fleet. They had arranged themselves in a search pattern and were systematically scanning the area around Luna Station's last known position. This is Torvak of the Hegemony Fleet, a harsh voice announced over the communication system. We know the fugitive champion Zaratiel has taken refuge at this station. Surrender the child immediately, and no harm will come to the human population. Commander Rodriguez looked to Marcus and Zaratiel. Your call. This is your fight, but my people are caught in the middle. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. 300 innocent lives hung in the balance because of his son's existence. But, looking down at Kaimarcus, sleeping peacefully in his arms, he knew he couldn't simply hand him over to people who saw him only as a weapon. There has to be another way, Marcus said. Perhaps there is, Zaratiel said thoughtfully. She activated her own communication device, sending a tight beam transmission to the lead hegemony ship. Torvak, this is Champion Zaratiel. I invoke the right of challenge. The silence that followed was pregnant with tension. Finally, Torvak's voice returned, filled with surprise and anger. You would invoke ancient law to protect your abomination? I invoke ancient law to protect my son, Zaratiel replied firmly. The right of challenge is clear. Single combat to determine the child's fate. If you defeat me, the child returns with you. If I win, you withdraw and report that we were not found. Marcus grabbed her arm. Zara, you can't. It's too dangerous. She smiled at him with infinite sadness. It is the only way, beloved. The right of challenge is absolute law among our people. Even Torvak cannot refuse without dishonoring himself. But if you lose, then our son will grow up knowing his parents loved him enough to sacrifice everything for his freedom, she said simply. Kaimarcus stirred in Marcus's arms, looking up at his mother with those wise, ancient eyes. Mama, you don't have to fight alone. What do you mean, little star? The child reached out and touched both his parents, and, suddenly, Marcus felt something incredible flowing through the connection. It was knowledge, understanding, and power beyond anything he had ever imagined. Through his son, he could feel Zaratiel's thoughts and emotions, and she could feel his. "We are family," Marcus said seriously. "Family is stronger together." Marcus understood then what his son was offering. Not just a connection, but a joining of their strengths, their knowledge, their very souls. It was dangerous and unprecedented, but it might be their only chance. "I'm with you," Marcus told Zaratiel, their eyes meeting across their son's small form. "Whatever happens, we face it together." The transmission crackled to life again. "I accept your challenge, fallen champion. Transport to the neutral vessel for combat. The child remains on the station until the outcome is determined." "No," Marcus said firmly. "We go together, or not at all. I won't be separated from my parents again." Zaratiel looked at Marcus, and, through their newfound connection, he felt her fear, her love, and her desperate hope. They were about to risk everything on a single moment of combat, with their son's future hanging in the balance. Together, Marcus agreed. As they prepared to leave Luna's station for what might be the last time, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed. 2 days ago, he had been ordinary Marcus Chen, maintenance engineer. Now he was the father of the most extraordinary child in 2 galaxies, connected to an alien champion who had risked everything for love, about to fight for the right to raise his son in freedom. The transport to the neutral vessel would take 30 minutes. 30 minutes to prepare for a battle that would determine not just their family's fate, but possibly the future relationship between 2 entire civilizations. Marcus looked down at his son, who was studying the stars through the transport's viewing port with the intensity of someone far older than his apparent age. In that moment, he realized that ordinary had never really been an option for any of them. From the moment Zaratiel had first looked into his eyes and spoken of soul threads, their destinies had been intertwined with forces far greater than themselves. But, as the neutral vessel grew larger in their view, and the moment of challenge approached, Marcus felt something he hadn't expected. Peace. Whatever happened next, he was exactly where he belonged, with his family, fighting for their future among the stars. The greatest adventure of his life was just beginning.